Chapter 5, New Atlanta. Ryder gripped the armrest of the chair he was sitting in as the ship shook back and forth. It was loud and hot as they circled the earth and headed in through the atmosphere. He always hated this part because he read reports of ships overheating and exploding during re-entry. He wasn't the pilot, so he didn't have control over the situation, and that made it difficult to feel safe. Another turbulent wave rocked the ship up and down, and he felt the sinking feeling in his stomach. Then, all at once, they were clear. From the few windows on the ship, sunlight streaked in, brightening up the room. "Yeah, here we come, you EOA bastards!" he heard from just behind him where the Bees twins were strapped in. Then, over the intercom, they all heard, "Soldiers, we are T-minus 6 minutes from Atlanta. The ride will be rough, but you can get your equipment ready." Instantly, all the soldiers were up and checking their equipment one more time. They would exit from the back right after Tracker took out the entrance doors. Ryder walked around and checked with each soldier to make sure they were ready to go. Then he checked his own equipment to make sure he was ready. There was a small screen back there where he could monitor what Tracker was seeing. It looked like they were getting pretty close to the city, and he could already make out the big buildings. Tracker came on the intercom again. "Okay, soldiers, prepare for the attack." They all looked at the screen and could see that the ship was approaching the stadium. The ship came down quick and low, swinging in between buildings as it approached the entrance to the lower level. A warning beep sounded twice, and reflexively all the soldiers grabbed onto something, whether it be a chair or a table, and looked through the monitor. They felt the vibration of Tracker launching the missile, and almost at the same moment they saw the doors explode in a ball of fire and smoke. Immediately they were moving. The trap door appeared below them, and two ropes slid down from above. Bullet was already on a rope heading down, while the Bees twins were right behind him, followed by Ryder, Bites, and Jewel. They were only 5 feet from the ground, so they hit it easily. As soon as they hit, they scrambled for cover on either side of the walls. Ryder was listening to all their intercoms as they proceeded. When Jewel cleared the last rope, she indicated this by yelling, "Clear!" The ropes automatically recoiled back into the ship. The trapdoor closed, and Tracker took the ship up and away. As Ryder analyzed the situation, he saw the smoke begin to clear around the doors, or what was left of the doors from the explosion. That's when he saw a soldier poking his head out through the hole. In that instant, the soldier's brain exploded and his body fell back. Bullet's shot was a perfect one. He then took the lead, yelling, "Go, go, go!" to the team through his mic. Bullet was already jumping up on the platform and through the shattered mess of the doors. He checked to make sure he killed the soldier, then went in and looked to the left and right before giving a signal for everyone to follow. As Ryder entered the building, he glanced down momentarily at the soldier. He noticed that Bullet indeed killed the man with a single shot through the left eye. They were headed to the left and down the hallway toward the main offices as shown on the schematics. Ahead was a warehouse area that contained lots of boxes, but their objective was the main offices, so they kept going. As Ryder continued down the hallway, he heard more explosions and felt tremors under his feet. Tracker must be hitting the field, Ryder thought. Good, right on schedule. The goal was to attack from two fronts. The air power from the Pathfinder would destroy any escaped ships and also make the enemy focus on the loud attack while his group focused on getting to the main offices. Ryder heard more gunshots down the hallway as his team engaged the enemy. He could see the carnage along the way as he followed them slowly. Suddenly, he saw movement in his peripheral vision to the right and then felt something strike him on the shoulder. Instinctively, he turned toward the movement and ducked behind a cabinet in the hallway. He peered cautiously into the room. The room once had a huge glass windows and probably was a conference room for meetings, but the glass was shattered by a missile fired by Tracker earlier. Then Ryder saw movement from behind a podium. He reached for the handle to the door, counted to 2, turned and pushed it in, while following with his left shoulder to position himself facing the podium. The hidden man heard this and peered around the podium again. Big mistake, thought Ryder as he put 2 bullets through the man's heart. The man collapsed on the podium and then slid slowly to the ground. Ryder checked the rest of the room just to be sure it was clear, as Bites and Jewel appeared behind him. "Major, are you okay?" she asked, examining his right shoulder. It was then that Ryder noticed he was indeed hit. The good news was that the protective suit he wore took the brunt of the bullet. The armor was damaged, but he only felt a dull throb when he pushed against his shoulder. Once again, he lucked out and would be fine. Ryder nodded to Jewel, indicating that he was good. Then Bites pointed to a slogan that was burned into a wood plaque mounted above the projector screen on the front. The slogan read, God has given you all the earth, planets, plants, and animals. For these you will be master. Ryder could recite the slogan by heart. It was the battle cry for the Earth-only agents. In their steadfast belief that Earth was the only place humans needed to reside, and was the driving reason for attacking anything that led to humans leaving Earth. Ryder nodded in agreement, and they were indeed at an EOA headquarters, and then led the two out of the conference room and down the hallway. He heard reports through the earpiece. It was Bullet. Major, we have discovered what we think is the main office. I have one of the terrorists waiting for you to interrogate. The Bees twins are checking the rest of the rooms, then heading back your way. We have a computer ready and waiting for Bites. Good job. We will be there soon, Bullet. Based on the schematics they reviewed before landing, Ryder knew Bullet couldn't be too much further ahead. The hallway curved as they were wrapping around the underneath the structure of the stadium. Tracker, report, Ryder ordered into his mic. Ryder, I was met with very little resistance. The escape ship Adam arrived in is destroyed, along with two other small craft. The computer analyzed the patterns in the dirt, and it appears as if there was another ship here recently. Heat patterns show it might have launched no more than 2 hours ago. It looks like the leaders might have escaped. Damn it! Ryder cursed into the mic. Okay, Tracker, good job. Continue to monitor the exits for any escaping terrorists. Eliminate them on sight. Yes, sir, Tracker, out. The earpiece went silent. The Beast twins arrived just as Ryder, Jewel, and Bites reached the end of the hallway. The room at the end was clearly the main one. Gold-plated crosses were hanging on both sides of the entryway, and another plaque with the EOA slogan was mounted above the door. Major, what are your orders? Said the Bee twins at the same time. Gentlemen, we are going into the office to gain some intel. Please guard this hallway and let me know right away if you see anything. Yes, sir, they said in unison, while moving some of the furniture into position outside the door to provide them cover as they took up guard positions. Ryder and the others proceeded inside. There was a small reception area that was unoccupied. They entered the main office to find Bullet with his rifle pointed at a man with blood dripping down his nose. The man was seated in a nice leather chair behind the main desk. There was a terminal to the right, and Bites grabbed one of the guest chairs and turned the computer monitor to face him. He went to work immediately trying different key combinations and then plugging a device into the terminal. Ryder looked closely at the man and realized instantly it was the same man who escaped from the moon base after setting the charges. His name was Adam Ryan. Ryder holstered his gun and then grabbed Ryan by the collar and pushed the chair up to the corner of the wall. He did this in such a swift motion, the man yelped in shock. You are Adam Ryan, and you pretended to be a temporary maintenance worker at Armstrong Moon Base Terminal, but in fact, you were setting a remote charge in a supply ship, which you set off when you were off the moon. Do you deny these charges? It took a moment for the man to get over his initial fear, but then he put on a sly smile and didn't respond. I will repeat, do you deny the charges? The man looked directly into Ryder's eye and said, Of course not. Don't you see it's God's mission to stop the Mayflower from reaching Sperrier? I am just doing God's will. You killed 2 people in that attack and injured many more. Isn't there a commandment against murder? I think it's the first one, Ryder said sarcastically. Ryan smiled and just said again, It is God's will, and I am just following his orders. Fine, whatever. Now where is everyone? Where's the main branch of the EOA? Tell me now! Ryder grabbed Ryan and pushed him deeper into the chair against the wall. Ryan looked into Ryder's eyes and then bit down on something. Suddenly, he started to shake and foam was coming out of his mouth. But he kept his eyes fixed on Ryder. No! Ryder yelled and pulled Ryan off the chair, grabbed a bottle of water from the table, and started pouring it down Ryan's mouth. You son of a bitch! Don't die on me! Bullet set his gun down and grabbed a needle from his pack, stabbing it into Ryan's leg, then checked the man's pulse. Ryder was still trying to clear Ryan's mouth of the poison, but it was too late. Ryan was coughing up blood now, and then his eyes went blank. Ryder shook him again. Damn it! We should have checked his mouth. Now all is lost. We have no idea where they are. There was silence around the room for a moment. Maybe not, came a small voice from the desk, breaking the silence. Ryder looked up, and it was Bolts peering at him from around the terminal. I think I have something, Major. Come look. Ryder left Ryan's body lying on the floor and went to stand behind Bites. On the screen were multiple windows, and Bites was flipping back and forth among screens. Bites started talking. At first, I thought that Ryan successfully wiped the terminal before we arrived, but using the search technology I have on my drive, I was able to peel away the layers of the reformat and find the underlying data. What I was looking for was some way to figure out how the EOA was able to survive here. When we entered the warehouse, I noticed some boxes of food products in the corner, and I used the barcodes as a starting point to begin tracing the terminal for anything related to those boxes. It appears as if the shipments were pilfered from the supply runs to both New Atlanta and New Nashville. Remember those reports we read about how people in both those cities were complaining about extreme rationing? Bites looked up at Ryder. Ryder nodded, vaguely remembering this information. There was so much coming in daily that it was hard to decipher what was of value. However, Bites was gifted with a photographic memory, so he could pull up this type of information from his brain at will. Bites continued. Well, it appears as if the EOA were pulling shipments for at least the past 3 years to this stadium location. Well, that explains how they were surviving here topside, but that doesn't help us in finding their main group or where they escaped to, Ryder said, feeling a little bit of desperation. Major, there is more. When the food was disappearing, the World Space Congress decided to try tracking the food supplies, so they inserted some beacons in random boxes to see if they could figure out where the boxes were going. But the program was closed after only a few months when the department ran out of funds. However, the beacons remained inactive. I have a list of these beacons and I activated them a few minutes ago. He waited for a moment to let that sink in. Wait, Bites. What does that mean? You know another location where the EOA might be? Ryder hesitated in asking, not wanting to know the answer. Yes, sir, Bites said with enthusiasm and continued. Many of the beacons are showing up in New Atlanta based on the GPS locations underground. 3 of them appeared in a building we are in now, but 8 of them tracked to another building in the city. In fact, I'm seeing a lot of boxes located in this new location. There is enough food for an entire company of soldiers. Show me, Ryder commanded while leaning in close. Bites began pulling up screens showing the streets around the area and then pictures of the location. In the years before the riots, this was called the CNN Center. It contained a hotel with interior rooms with balconies that looked over a large restaurant and shopping area complex. The area is almost self-contained, and most of the rooms would be protected from outside conditions. Plus, the restaurant complex and news center would be a great location to house lots of equipment, troops, and even small ships could be built in the indoor sports arena that is located next door. Much of this area was sealed off after the riots, and New Atlanta was built underground on the other side of town west of here. So even freelancers would probably not journey to this part of the city. Ready for the best thing? Look how close we are to the CNN Center. It is just across the street and parking lot. This would make it easy for them to move shipments to both places without a lot of travel up topside. They may even have an underground tunnel, although it is probably hidden from us. Ryder contemplated all that he heard for a minute. This seemed like a good lead. The tracking program wasn't widely known, so if the EOA didn't know about it, he would be able to track the boxes right to the other location. However, the pictures Byte showed him indicated there were a lot of boxes at this location. Why would there be so many? How many troops might they be facing in this second location? They were lucky here not to face so much resistance, but the other location is probably better defended. He needed to talk to Commander Smith to get his next orders. Okay, nice work, Bites, Ryder said, slapping him on the back. Keep working on it and see if you can find anything else. I have to contact the commander. Ryder stepped back into the reception room and pulled out the secure text device. The device would allow him to connect to Commander Smith directly with no chance for interception. Commander, location secured. All enemies dead, typed Ryder, and then he clicked to send. Good, but no negotiation? Ryder replied, had main man, but he took a suicide pill and couldn't be revived. Damn, another loss of information. Any new leads? Ryder knew the line was secure, but he was still careful with his words. New location acquired. However, it might have more than we can handle. Is a backup team on its way? He waited for the reply, which seemed to take longer than usual. Backup team unable to come. You are ordered to proceed to the new location and take it at all costs. Commander, while the information was acquired effectively by Bytes, I am worried about what we might be facing. Can you provide more backup intel or anything to support us? Ryder typed, pleading for support. This time it took even longer for the reply. Major, this mission is too time-sensitive. Wait. You have your orders. Now execute them. Please send coordinates of the new location, and we will send satellite images from the past week. Ryder shook his head. Ever since he had given this mission, he had worried about how quickly it had been ordered and set up. Now they were being sent into a second location with virtually no information. Yes, the satellite information would help, but he had no idea what they were walking into at the new location. He requested backup, and there was none to give, so he did the only thing he could do. He accepted the orders. Orders accepted. Ryder out. Ryder closed up the communication device and put it back in his zippered pocket. He took a quick drink of water from his bottle and then went back into the office where Bullet was searching the desk drawers for anything useful, and Bytes was still flipping through screens on the terminal. Bytes, did you find any more information? Well, sir, two things. The first is the acronyms they are using for both offices. This office appears to be called Bishop, and the one at the old CNN Center is called King. If you remember your chess game at all, you would recognize that a king is higher than a bishop. So I'm making an assumption that orders come down from the king location to the other bishops. I haven't been able to discover if there are other bishop locations, but I'm still working through all the information. The second thing is a bit scarier. There are bits and pieces about something called Operation Final Solution. This made Ryder shudder, and he stopped Bytes. Did you say Final Solution? Yes, that is what they are calling it. Ryder was quite disturbed by this. The final solution was a plan by the German Nazis during World War II to kill all the Jews. Why would they use such a horrific name? It was pretty offensive, but then he hadn't seen much to make him think that the OA was anything more than a bunch of psychotic religious fanatics using their narrow interpretation of the Bible for killing. Ryder said, Do they say what the purpose of this operation is? What's its purpose? Ryder was clicking around and trying to speak as he went. All I can gather from what I see so far is that it involves a coordinated attack on multiple targets to force everyone back to Earth. Do they say when this is supposed to happen? Ryder said again. Not that I can tell. I just need more time to go through the information. Time may be something we don't have, Ryder said as he got on the mic. Team, we have a new mission. We are out in 5 minutes. Tracker, bring the ship around and we will meet you outside. Come in hot. On it, Ryder, Tracker responded. Bytes, is there any way you can take this with you so you can get out of here? Ryder asked. Of course, sir. I've already made a copy of the data. I can leave at any time. Bytes responded, and they started packing up everything. Bullet pulled his equipment together, and Jewel looked to Ryder. Good, Bytes. Then destroy the terminal, and maybe if anyone comes in here, they will think we didn't get any useful data, Ryder ordered. Yes, sir. Bytes turned to Jewel, and she pulled out a small hammer and smashed the screen and threw it to the ground. Okay, team, let's move. We will meet Tracker outside, then get ready for our next mission. We now take our fight to the king, Ryder said with authority, but deep inside he was nervous. This first part of the mission was a success, actually a bit too easy, but something made him feel like the next one wouldn't be. They moved out the door and headed back down the hallway. The Bees twins bringing up the rear. They reached the warehouse easily, and Bytes pointed out the boxes that were giving off the beacon signal. Ryder tapped a message to Tracker to let them know they were ready for pickup. Then he sent Commander Smith the coordinates for the CNN Center after retrieving them from Bytes. They waited near what was left of the doors, which were still smoking from the missile shot. There were bodies from their destruction, but Ryder worried at how little resistance they encountered here. He hoped there wasn't a bigger group with more weapons at the CNN Center. If so, they would be in trouble. The Pathfinder appeared almost out of nowhere from the sky and came rushing down almost to the ground. This time Tracker put out a ramp that extended right to them. They rushed on, and the ship was up and out in a matter of seconds. The plan was to fly out of New Atlanta temporarily. If they were being watched by the enemy, this would make it look like they left for good. They might think the attack was over. It would also allow Ryder's team to clean up, eat a meal, and then prepare for the next attack. Robbins Air Force Base was located about 100 miles southwest of Atlanta. While the base was abandoned years ago, it was still a relatively secure place where the team could lay low for a few hours. Tracker made quick work of the flight, and they arrived in less than an hour at the Air Force Base. He touched the ship down in the middle of one of the runways. This would give them maximum views all around in case anyone tried to attack. There was little chance of this, but better to be able to see what was coming from a distance. Ryder entered the bridge just as Tracker was setting it down. "Nice flying, Tracker." The sun was nearing the horizon and night was fast approaching. "Thanks, Ryder. I am setting the ground sensors on maximum, and it will give us any warning of movement within 1,000 meters of our position in any direction. We should be good for now. Tracker, why don't you get a little rest and eat something? We will be going into the CNN Center at 0400 hours to give us the best chance for a surprise. I am hoping that we might be able to be less obvious this time. I am going to have Bytes research a way to get access the center from our best point to get us in without detection." "That sounds like a plan, Ryder. I could use a few hours of shut-eye. Hopefully you will get some as well." Ryder followed Tracker back through the hallway and then continued past his room to the main conference area. Suddenly, the weight of the mission, in addition to Earth's gravity, fell upon him, and he needed to sit down. As he collapsed into his seat at the head of the table, Bytes came to sit next to him. "Well, Bytes, have you found anything else we can use?" "Actually, I think I have," said Bytes, connecting his handheld to the projector. What appeared on the screen was schematics of the CNN Center. "As you know, the hotel area is here at the front of the building," Bytes said, using a pointer to show the front. "From satellite images, it appears that this whole wall of windows is gone, which means they probably aren't using these rooms on this side. They are probably using the area deep in the center where the news offices used to be. This would give them maximum protection against the weather while making it look like the place is abandoned from the outside. My thought is that we could come in on top of the building. From the satellite imagery, there were big ventilation fans on top of the building originally, but it appears those aren't there anymore. If Tracker brings us in on top, we could rappel down through the shafts and land quietly in the conference area. From there, we can head into the main area. The CNN offices were located on the upper floors, which can be reached by this long escalator. It is probably not in operation anymore, but it might allow us access up to the top." "What are the odds we can get in without detection?" Ryder asked, rubbing his forehead while in deep thought. "The satellites were not able to detect any heat or electrical activity in the area we will enter. Also, the sensors didn't pick up any cameras or anything that seemed like security. I have a feeling they probably have security, but it will only activate once we get inside and closer to their main office. If we go quietly, maybe we can get pretty far before they sound the alarm. I will bring the jamming equipment again, and hopefully we can detect any use of security equipment, and I can disable it as we go." "Good. Why don't you get some rest? We can meet again at 0100 hours to go through the plan." Bytes agreed and got up from his chair to head to his bunk. Ryder was getting himself a cup of coffee from the pot on the table when Bullitt sat down next to him. "Sir, permission to speak freely," Bullitt said. Ryder motioned him to a seat next to his and took a sip of coffee. It was a bit cold, but it would have to do at this point. "Bullitt, what can I do for you?" "Sir, something doesn't feel right about this mission. I have been on hundreds of missions with you before, but this one, it makes me nervous." Ryder set the cup down. This was strange. In all the time he spent with Bullitt over the years, he never once complained or questioned anything, much less got nervous. "Bullitt, I have known you for many years, and I have never seen you express worry. What is it about this mission that is any different?" Bullitt looked down at his massive hands, balled them into fists for a second, and then released them. I'm not very good with words, sir, but it was something in the way Ryan acted today. It was almost like he knew we would fail. I know he is a religious fanatic, and they all have their belief in God that keeps them strong. But there was something else. We took down his entire group in a matter of minutes. They were all dead but him. He had to know that we would be able to track them to the next location. So why isn't he worried?" Ryder took another sip of coffee, finishing the cup and almost gagging on the grounds at the bottom. Damn, he thought. Couldn't anyone make a decent cup of coffee anymore? "Bullitt, I understand your concerns. I expressed similar ones to Commander Smith when I messaged him, but we have a mission to do. We must stop the EOA before they complete this final mission or whatever they're planning. Of course, we would all like a few more days and 100 more soldiers to back us up, but it's not going to happen. We are on our own and just have to make do. Ryder hesitated for a moment, trying to think of the right words to put Bullet at ease. Bullet, whatever happens, we will succeed. We have an incredible team, and you are at the heart of it. We have to succeed because we must. Humanity must be able to propagate the universe. That is truly God's plan. I think we are close to ending this. Bullet nodded, finishing his own coffee. Then he looked into Ryder's eyes and said, Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for your time. Permission to return to my bunk. Ryder gave him a nod, and Bullet slipped out of his seat and headed back to his room, leaving Ryder alone with his thoughts again. Bullet made some great points. Ryder didn't want to use the expression, it's a trap. However, it felt like that. This wasn't a small building they were going into. It was a huge complex, and he only had a small squad of soldiers. What if the AOA had an entire army in there? If this was their stronghold, could his soldiers take them? If only Commander Smith agreed to provide backup. They needed to attack now in case Ryan alerted them to the circumstances before he committed suicide. Ryder leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and drifted to sleep. Chapter 6, USS Gemini. Cooper woke up to the sound of Josiah snoring. He glanced at his handheld, and the time read 0630 hours. Now is as good a time as any to get up, get breakfast, and get to work, Cooper thought. He crawled out of bed and quickly made the bunk. Josiah mentioned something about monthly inspections, and he didn't have any idea when that would be, so he made sure his bed was made properly. He went to the bathroom and found the shower area. There were 2 small shower cubicles. He stepped into one of them and turned on the faucet, letting the warm water wake him up. He finished in the bathroom, got dressed, and headed down to the mess hall. Josiah was just getting out of bed, mumbling something about a crazy night. Cooper would ask about it later. He got to the mess hall, and the line was longer than last night. He wasn't hungry, just too nervous with the first day of training to think about food. He chose the continental breakfast, not looking at what was on it. He found a table by himself and sat down to eat. It was then that he looked at what he ordered. It was 2 pieces of toast, 2 eggs, and bacon. Bacon, Cooper thought, and suddenly he remembered eating bacon with his father. He was back in New Denver. There was so much excitement in them both. They were about to go topside to Ryder and leave Earth forever. His dad ordered a huge plate of bacon, and Cooper ate more than he could ever remember. They were going together, and for the first time, Cooper felt that he finally understood who his dad was. He was from space. Then Cooper heard the clinking of mugs together, and it brought him back to the present. While he was reliving the past, he unconsciously ate the eggs and the toast, but the bacon remained on his plate. He looked at the bacon in disgust now. Sometimes he felt like he just wanted to go back to Earth with his M16 rifle and track down any remaining raiders. He sipped his juice, rubbed his eyes that had teared up, and looked around, trying to think of something else, hoping no one noticed his wet eyes. It seemed most people here on Gemini weren't morning people, so it was relatively quiet as people ate their breakfast. He looked at his handheld and reviewed the files he was given about Gemini. He checked his route so he could get to the motor pool on time. It looked like it would take about a 10-minute walk. It probably would be better if he arrived a little early. Finishing his juice, he headed out. There were a few groups heading the same way as him. Most of them were talking about projects they were on. One group was all dressed in yellow jumpsuits. They were talking in a language that wasn't the English standard. He tried to listen, but it made no sense to him. They seemed happy and were slapping each other on the back, wearing broad smiles. Before reaching the motor pool entrance, they turned off and headed down one of the terminal hallways. Cooper used his key card to enter the motor pool. Then he followed the same route he used before, following Daniels to find the stairs up to Bolt's office. As he entered the office, he noticed that not much changed since the previous day. Daniels waved to him from his office, and Boltz was still working on the terminal while chomping away on his unlit cigar. It looked like it might be a new cigar today. Then he felt himself being shoved forward. "What the heck?" he said, looking back after regaining his balance. It was Specialist Johnson. She was drinking a cup of hot coffee and still smirked at him. "I was going to make sure you didn't spill my coffee today. Well, Richardson, are you ready to start your training?" Cooper didn't know what to say. Sure, Specialist." "Cut the fancy protocols, Richardson. You can just call me Johnson. Maybe someday I'll let you call me Ann, but for now, Johnson will work." "Well, Johnson, yes, I'm ready." But I'm confused. Isn't First Sergeant Bolts training me? Ha ha ha! Good one. Sure. I mean, he will help you once you get into more advanced repairs, but for your initial start, you will be with me. Cooper was nervous talking to Johnson, but working with her might help him get over his fear of women. She was a little shorter than him and a little bit stocky in shape. She had shorter, curly, light brown hair and a great smile, but it was those big blue eyes that really drew him to her. Waking up from his thoughts, Johnson pushed him again and said, "Okay, Johnson, stop staring and let's go." As Johnson spoke, she turned back around and Cooper followed her down a steep set of stairs. They reached a level with many windows looking out onto a field of ships. "That," Johnson said, "is what we call the parking lot. This is where most of the large spaceships dock with Gemini." Somewhere along the way, Johnson ditched the coffee and she now had her handheld device. "Today, we will be working on a family ship called the Hawk. It is an independent mining ship that just returned from the asteroid belt. According to the head mechanic, they were having problems with the humidity system. They tried replacing the filters from the inside, and this helped, but it's still too humid inside. More than likely, it's a problem from the outside system. You and I are going on a spacewalk." "That sounds great," Cooper said. This is what he decided on for his future, so it was exciting that he would get to do it now on day one. "But first, we are headed to the supply room. They will set you up with your spacesuit, and after a few tests, we will head out there," Johnson said, pointing out the window. Then she beckoned him to follow her to the next hallway. There they entered a supply room and met Sergeant Russo. "Hey, Harry," Johnson said, giving him a high five as they entered. "What's up, Ann? Who's your new friend?" Harry said, "This is Richardson. He's a new trainee, just arrived yesterday. We are going to turn him into an astromechanical engineer." "Well, Richardson, welcome to the world of space and adventure," Harry said, shaking Cooper's hand. "Nice to meet you, Sergeant. I am looking forward to getting out there," Cooper said, truly excited that what was going to happen. "Richardson, you can call me Harry. We aren't formal here. Let's get you measured into your suit. Ann, you want to give us about an hour or so?" "Sure, Harry. That will give me time to get the supplies together for our trip out to the Hawk for a repair mission." "Oh, the Hawk is back?" asked Harry. "Yeah, they ran into some problems and lost their main mechanic in a freak accident, so they had to return early," Ann replied. "That is space life for sure," Harry said, and Johnson nodded in agreement. Then she waved and went out the door. "Okay, Richardson, come over here and I'll get your measurements." Cooper walked over to a red disc with painted footprints to stand on. Harry had him stand up straight, and then lasers appeared all over his body that started from his head and went down to his feet, then back up. After the lasers stopped, Harry told him to relax and have a seat. There were some chairs off to the side. After about 20 minutes, Harry came back with a suit. "Isn't technology amazing? We have material in back, and the computer lasers detect your size and print a custom suit in just a matter of minutes. Come on over." Cooper walked over to where Harry was standing with the suit. He was told to strip down to his underwear and a t-shirt. Then Cooper put the suit up from his legs. The boots were built into the suit, so it had less chance for failure. The computer on his chest turned on, and Harry showed him how to bring it to life. Then Cooper felt the suit grip around him. The suit, which was much more comfortable than the one he used in basic training. Clearly, it was a better design now that he was in advanced training. "Richardson, this is the latest in technological suits. I am sure this is much better than the one used in basic. The suit molds to your body so it will fit perfectly, and remember the setting every time. The suit also has on-screen eye and vocal controls." Putting Cooper's helmet on, a screen appeared in front of him, projected on the inner side of the helmet. He could hear Harry's voice in the helmet. "Richardson, first activate the on-screen system by saying activate. Then you can use your eyes to pull down the menus and make adjustments. Please run an online diagnostic." As Cooper said, "activate," a screen appeared before his eyes. At first, it was a challenge to move the cursor using his eyes. He sorted through the windows, making adjustments to the internal temperature and reducing the friction when he moved his arms. Then he found a menu for support and started the diagnostic check. "Good, Cooper, you are a quick study," Harry said, checking all the equipment and making sure everything was locked in place. "It looks like a good fit." As the diagnostic ran, instructions appeared on the screen for him to move in certain ways or look in different directions so the system could align everything and customize the suit to him. There was a beep, and Cooper looked at the diagnostic display, which read "Done." There was also a second screen on the front of the suit for Harry to check as well, and Cooper could see he was looking at it and running through the screens. Then he said, "Everything looks good. Now introduce yourself." "Huh?" Cooper said, with no clue what Harry meant. Harry laughed and said, "Say hello to your suit." Cooper thought that seemed a little funny, but he tried anyways. "Okay. Hello, my name is Cooper Richardson." "Well, hello, Cooper," said a voice through his intercom. "My name is Simon, and I will be your onboard computer system. Cooper, I have accessed your files. It appears as if you are left-handed, but you can use both hands effectively." "Yes, that is correct, Simon," Cooper said, hesitating and still surprised by the system conversation. He heard of artificial intelligence on Earth, but he didn't know it was so sophisticated. "Cooper, my main job is to keep you safe. I see you have run a diagnostic check in the past couple of minutes, and all looks good. Just say my name any time you need me." Harry was waving to him. "Cooper, tell the computer you want to take your helmet off." Cooper nodded and said, "Simon, please remove my helmet." The Cooper voice responded in his ear. "Cooper, it appears as if you're in a safe place to do so, but please say yes to confirm removal of the helmet." "Yes, remove helmet," Cooper said. Then he felt the seal clear and the helmet opened and retracted to the back of his head. Looking down, Cooper saw a smiling Harry in front of him. "Excellent. You are a fast learner. As time goes by, you will learn all the voice commands. The screen is there for backup and also to monitor all systems when you need exact readings. The AI will also improve your time over time as it begins to recognize your voice. What is your computer's name?" Cooper responded. The AI said his name was Simon. "Ah, interesting. Currently there are over 50 AIs in the system, and each one has its own personality and voice. Sometimes it will check your personnel records before choosing the AI in an attempt to relate to you. For example, if you had a Southern American accent, it would adjust its name and language to the person. And even though the primary language in space is now English, there are ways to adjust the AI to speak in another world language like Spanish or Chinese." "That's amazing," Cooper said. Every day he was shocked at how primitive Earth was compared to everything going on here in space. "I don't see any reason to ever go back," Cooper thought. Here, there were opportunities to learn and grow. On Earth, it was all about just getting enough credits to eat dinner. At times, though, Cooper did miss the freelancing. He was all alone, and it was so quiet there topside. But here, he could pursue his learning. "Yes, it's pretty cool," Harry said, looking down at his device. "Oh, you better get going. Johnson is waiting for you in airlock 2. Cooper thanked Harry and then headed out the door, following the directions that Harry gave him to get to the airlock. He reached the airlock in a couple of minutes, and Johnson was waiting for him. "Took you long enough, Richardson. All suited up?" "Yes, the suit is pretty amazing. Harry was showing me some of the voice settings," Cooper said, thrilled to be here. "So, what's its name?" Johnson asked as she turned to open the airlock. "My AI's name is Simon, and he sounds sort of like he's from New Denver." "Yeah, the computer tries to match you up with your voice, but doesn't always succeed. Mine is named Tracy, and it has a bit of a British accent, which is strange because I'm not from England. But I like her voice." Then, getting the airlock open, she gestured for Cooper to enter. It was then that Johnson became all business. "So, get your helmet on and test it, then switch to channel 3 so we can communicate." Cooper put on the helmet and said, "Simon, please secure my helmet." "Ah, yes, Cooper. I see that you are going outside. Give me a moment," Simon said with the courtesy of a human. "It is set. Your systems are running optimally at the moment. I will keep monitoring it," Simon said, showing Cooper the statistics on his suit through the on-screen display. "Please switch to channel 3, Cooper said. "Done," Simon said. Then the airlock opened and they were in space. In front of them was the Hawk. This was clear to Cooper by the design and look of the ship, which had the shape and markings of a beautiful hawk in full flight on the top of the ship. It even had what looked like a beak at the front where the bridge was located. Cooper stared in awe for a moment before he heard Johnson in his ear. "Okay, stop gawking, Richardson, and let's go. Your suit is equipped with small air boosters to propel you. Just let your AI know where you want to go, and it will get you there in the most efficient manner." "Simon," Cooper instructed, "I need to follow Specialist Johnson to the Hawk. I believe we will be headed to the top of the ship where the venting system is located." "Roger-o, Cooper. Here you go." Cooper felt the movement, and he was following Johnson out to the Hawk. They both moved slowly out toward the ship. Cooper was surprised by the size of the Hawk. It was a little bit bigger than the ship he rode to Gemini. Over the intercom, Cooper said, "Johnson, this isn't a very big ship. Did you say a family lived on it?" "Yes, you have a keen eye," Johnson replied as they continued to move closer to the ship. "As I said, this is a family ship, but surprisingly, more than 30 people live on it. The key is that they aren't all awake at the same time. They use suspended animation over staggered intervals. This way, they can conserve food and other resources for the long voyages. Also, it can get pretty damn boring traveling to and from the asteroid belt, so extended sleep is a necessity to keep your sanity." They reached the top of the ship, and Johnson laid the toolbox down next to the plate that was painted with brown feathers as part of the left wing of the hawk bird. She showed Cooper where the bolts were to open the panel. "This panel," Johnson instructed, "covers the humidity system. It runs closer to the outside surface so it can be cooled and used in the suspended animation process, but also to keep the ship cool as well. As you know, many of these ships use nuclear engines, which can run pretty hot, so they need the cooling and humidity systems to keep them at a reasonable temperature inside." She grabbed a tool from the box and handed it to Cooper. She pointed to the first bolt and showed him how to use it. Cooper got the mechanical wrench on the bolt, checked to make sure it was on the loosen setting, and went to work. The wrench automatically held each bolt in the tool as it took them off so it wouldn't be lost in space. The panel had 16 bolts. It took a while, but he finally finished. "Good," said Johnson. "Now let's see if there are any problems." She pulled out another magnetic tool, clamped it on the panel, and pulled up. The panel stuck for a second and then pulled away from the ship, along with the lots of ice particles. Cooper was fascinated by the spread of the ice particles as they moved up around him and Richardson. All he could say was, "Whoa, beautiful." The ice particles continued to come from the venting system as the humidified air hit space and turned to ice crystals. The light from the moon behind them was reflecting off the crystals, producing a spectrum of colors. "Richardson, snap out of it and hand me the sealant gun." Cooper blinked and then reached into the toolbox. He saw the gun she was referring to because it was labeled and handed it to her. She released the panel and let it hang there in space at zero gravity. Then she quickly used the sealant gun to seal the hole, and air crystals stopped. She then used another tool to clean off the remaining ice that was around the leak and the whole panel area. Finally, handing the sealant gun back to Cooper, she grabbed the welding tool to permanently seal the leak. Cooper waited patiently, just watching what she was doing. "That got it, Richardson. Now you can put the panel back on." Cooper put away the sealant gun and grabbed the panel. He loved working in zero-G. The panel probably weighed more than him, but here in space he could lift it easily. But it still had mass, so it was hard to maneuver into place. It took him a few minutes to line it up on the bolts, but then he was standing on it. He grabbed the wrench and set it to tighten and started the slow process of putting all 16 bolts back on. When he finished, he put the wrench back in the toolbox, and Johnson used a welding tool again to seal the place where the panel was removed. "All good," she said, finishing and closing the toolbox. "We can head back now. You have just completed your first repair. This family will now be able to go back out into space and mine that belt." Cooper used voice commands to have Simon follow Johnson back into the airlock. As they floated back, Cooper asked, "Johnson, that didn't seem like a complicated repair. Why didn't the people on the ship just fix it?" "Well, Cooper, that is a good question," Johnson thought for a moment before continuing. "One of the problems is that many of these independent mining groups think that if they have just basic repair problems, they can survive anything. The problem is that out there," she gestured in the direction away from the sun, "there is no one to help. So they just risk it. There is a lot of riches in the asteroid belt, but there are many stories of ships that never make it back. So they just make the repairs they can until they can get back here. As I was telling Harry, this ship had an astromechanical apprentice, but they told me he was killed in a freak accident. So all they could do was repair from the inside and hope to make it back here. I have been recruited many times to join crews, but I'm satisfied doing my work here at Gemini." "It makes sense," Cooper responded, thinking back to the number of times he got into trouble topside and there was no one there to help him. He just had to improvise, like the repair crew of the Hawk. When they were clear of the airlock, Johnson directed Cooper to the locker room. Using his key card, he accessed his permanent locker and stowed the spacesuit and all the gear. When they were done, he put his regular uniform back on, and he met Richardson back out in the hallway. "Sorry, we missed lunch today, Richardson. There's always tomorrow," she said with a laugh. "It's okay, Johnson. I loved it out there." When do we go again?" Cooper said, probably too enthusiastically, but he was young, and it was amazing. "Whoa, Tiger, relax," Johnson said, holding her hands up. "Just meet me here tomorrow at 0800 hours, and we will work on the next one. There is no shortage of work, that's for sure. Since you have some time today for homework, look through your manual on your handheld about ventilation systems so you can understand the whole system better. Now, I have to go do all the paperwork." Then she slapped him on the shoulder and floated away quickly. Cooper stood there in awe. He was getting pretty comfortable around Johnson after just 2 days. He wondered why, but was happy that he was finally learning his job and knew he made the right choice. Now to go find some dinner, he thought.